how this began was I was diagnosed with my cancer returning after quite a long time, and it took a very deep turn along with kidney failure where I lost 35 pounds, as you can see. I always wanted to lose 35 pounds, but not exactly in this way. And so I was home. I was in the hospital, and then I came home, and I was kind of like laying around, doing this and that. And lovely people were coming and bringing soup and all kinds of delicious things. And I said to Margie, it seems kind of foolish, we can't use the Bodhi tree anymore, but I would love to offer a little meditation and a little Dharma talk, because here I am sitting in this experience, and I actually really wanted to share it because it's quite profound to go through a dying process. And when I asked the doctor from hospice what she thought the prognosis was, she said months. And I thought, I don't feel it. I don't feel it. It ain't in my body. It ain't in my spirit. I don't feel it. So I thought, well, maybe there's something that I can share through the whole Buddhist process and also just my own experience that could be helpful, could be interesting, could be nothing, but I thought, rather than sitting here on my hospital bed looking out the window, I thought this would be an opportunity to at least help people to understand at least what my experience is. So what Margie and I sort of started talking about was, why not at least do an experiment and just have a little, a short meditation, a 15-minute meditation for some people who've never meditated before, and then to do a short Dharma talk, a loose Dharma talk about how this experience, I think, really has some worth in the Buddhist tradition. So I'd like to offer that, and I'd like to do a 15-minute meditation. Is that too long, or is that not for you guys, but for some people? Is it okay to do a 15-minute? Okay. All right, so we'll do just a 15-minute meditation. I'll ring the bell to start, and then once, and then I'll ring it 3 times to end. And then I'd like to just do this short Dharma talk. So when Margie and I began to talk, the whole idea of the matter at hand kept coming up, and sort of the nature of what is. And of course, in Buddhism, we have a distinct understanding of the nature of being. That nature of being is one that each one of us is capable of awakening in this body, regardless of what form it's taking, regardless of whether it's ill or healthy. We still have the possibility of awakening, and that for me was what kept me going. Was the idea, even though what happened was I was doing chemotherapy in a pill form, and I was feeling really bad. I didn't like it at all, and I decided to quit it. And I also decided to quit my oncologist because it was taking 4 hours every time I went to see him. We wouldn't be seen for 4 hours, and that was disturbing. And then when I needed some kind of a procedure, one of them took 11 days for them to set up, and I just thought, I'm not going there, not doing it. And I was feeling bad enough, so I said, okay, this is it, I'm done. And then hospice came along and said, okay, if you're not doing any treatment, we can have you in hospice. And what we do in hospice is we try to make your experience as positive as and as pain-free as we can. So their whole approach is give her as many drugs as you possibly can and she won't even notice. So, but you can't be on any kind of treatment plan. And so I of course gave up the treatment plan and went with the hospice. And that's when this hospice doctor very innocently, very lovingly, when I asked her what the prognosis was, and she said, "Oh, months." And I didn't experience it. There was a disconnect for me. I thought I need to start looking at some other things because it doesn't ring true, because this is my first time dying, I think. So maybe you don't feel it till it's right there. Maybe you're okay and feeling great and wanting to get in the ocean and having people take you to the beach and everything and whatever. And not feeling what I would assume that we could feel or should feel. So I started looking back towards what the historical Buddha discovered, and we all know what that was, and that was, that again, each of us has what's known later on as Buddha nature, and that Buddha nature allows us the ability to awaken. And then I started to look at going further. And this morning, Kristen said something to me, and I thought it was so interesting. What carries us on? What keeps us going on, other than just this? And she was mentioning, I think it was. Viktor Frankl in his book, and interviewing people who survived the Holocaust, and the thing that came up for all of those survivors was that they held on to some kind of meaning, that they had to have something that kept them feeling alive. And there had to be a reason why they were feeling alive, and that had to do with some kind of meaning. And I thought that was pretty powerful, pretty important. And I started thinking about, what are the things that make meaning for us? Part of it is the ability to awaken. The other is having loving kindness towards everybody in our lives. And I started thinking about, I don't want to give that up and sit in my hospital bed looking out a Diamond Head. So I think it's to engage, in any activity that we can that creates loving kindness within others and within ourselves. So that was one of the things that really came to me. And I started looking at Thich Nhat Hanh because I think he's so powerful. Thich Nhat Hanh is a Vietnamese monk born in 1926. He was 16 when he ordained, and in 1963, at the beginning of the real, sort of downfall of Vietnam, not only by the French, but beginning with the rest of the Western world, the United States and all that, he went to the United States. And to embark on an anti-war or a peace journey across the United States to let people know that there's another possibility besides arms, besides killing, that we can do something with each other that didn't entail blowing each other off the planet. So he went to Princeton and spent some time studying and working with people there and telling his story and offering his ideas about peace and all of that. And I started feeling that he's done the most work for me in making Buddhism palatable, making it something that's so easily adaptable in our lives. And I thought one of the concepts that he came up with, which I think is so powerful, is the idea of interbeing. That he created this idea that not only are we these beings that are capable of awakening, but that we're attached to each other, that we're part of each other. And Lala was telling me that she was sending me, what is it called?
It's a practice.
A practice of
For long life.
long life. Okay. Yeah. And other people have been telling me that they've been sending, whatever, loving kindness or, metta. And I started thinking about, about this idea of interbeing, or interdependence is another way that people talk about it. That not only are we these positive, amazing, precious births. In one of the traditions, they talk about being born a human is a very rare and precious thing, and that we don't really pay attention to it, at least not till you get to the point that you're sitting in a hospital bed looking out at Diamond Head. And that's not true, but but the whole idea is that we don't give enough to that preciousness, that we don't remember that that every day we're lucky enough to still be here. And from my own experience and Karen's and other people who have gone through this, it becomes more and more precious, becomes more and more valuable to remember that we're interdependent, and that and to be open to receiving and giving loving kindness. That's one of the most important gifts, as far as I'm concerned, that we give and get. Yeah. And then I was thinking about, okay, so we have these ideas of interdependence and interbeing and loving kindness towards each other and all of that. But what are the foundations for our acting in the world? What are the foundations for being interdependent and part of this interbeing? And I of course then return to the Buddhist idea of the 5 precepts. There are 5 precepts within the Buddhist tradition, and it's interesting because I've been doing a lot of work with the Mahayana group, that big Pali highway temple. Okay, so it's a Shin Buddhist temple, and it's a very 12th century was really when it got established, and they never returned to the original moral teachings. They only start with the founder of that particular religion, and they've recently found that it's not helpful for their practitioners to just have this chanting of this particular chant, putting faith in something outside of themselves, that they've found that when people are dying, they really need something more than that. So they asked me to do a series of courses, sort of the ABCs of Buddhism, to introduce some of the people within their congregation to the moral foundations of Buddhism, which affects them as much as it affects any of us. They just didn't know it. And it's been about 4 years that I've been doing it for them, and the response from their practitioners has been overwhelmingly positive, and that the idea that that we don't, the 5 precepts include things of not harming. And of course, everybody knows that. And these are loving, beautiful people. Without naming these precepts, their lives are filled with morality. It's not that they're not, but just naming them, I think, has been helpful. So the idea of not harming, the idea of not taking what is not given. The idea that we use our sexuality in a positive way, not in a harmful way to ourselves or to any others. No telling of things that are harmful through our speech, gossip, or telling things that are not true. And lastly, taking intoxicating beverages. This, I think, in their day, in the Buddha's day, when the precepts were written down, it was probably soma, which was a plant, and a psychedelic plant, if you will. And And so, but these things I think are quite helpful still to have a moral base in how we're behaving in the world. So coming back to some of these things has been a real lucky chance for me. It's been a real gift to be able to, I review them all the time anyway when I'm teaching, but just looking again at the power, the beauty, and the wisdom of this tradition has been really helpful to me. I was going to introduce you to my daughter, but I think she ran away. Mm-hmm. Did she run away? But she's been sort of a gift as well in the way that she's behaved during this whole process. I'm not dying in months. I don't care what that doctor says. So what I've decided is there's something called immunotherapy that's just taking off, and so my cousin has been doing some research for me, and I think rather than continuing with anything allopathic, or even trying to do some of the things that I've done before, excuse me, I did all kinds of alternative things. I'm going to look into the possibility of this this therapy, this immunotherapy, and I'm not quite sure how to describe it or what they do, but it's been taking off. MD Anderson has been doing it at University of Pennsylvania, University of California at San Francisco, and so there is a lot of work being done on it, and that's what I'm going to take a look at. So I just sort of thought I wanted to do something like that. It was not a formal Dharma talk where I'm giving you somebody's story. My story actually, but I wanted to share that with you, and I wanted to open it up and see if people had anything they would like to share in this context. Because I think it's something that all of us are going to go through. I'm just first. So that's right. I'm just ahead of my time. Yeah. So anyway, I hope that was enough. I hope that was because I just wanted to engage you and to let people know. A lot of people already knew anyway, and were engaged in some way or another, making food and coming and all of that. But I just wondered if there was any question or anything that you'd like to maybe share.
Comment.
Okay, this is Ron.
Hi. You are a teacher of the Dharma, of love, compassion. But I think the teaching is not in what you say, it's who you are. And I think your presence is the gift and the teaching. And I think people seem to think it has to come out of the mouth or in a lecture, but it is an energy, it's a vibration. And when I'm around you, I feel that. And the common denominator is always love. And you certainly personify that.
Yeah, I certainly receive it. Thank you. That's so lovely. This was not supposed to, come on, let's say great things about Pat session. That was not my intention at all. Yeah, Karen.
I don't know what I'm going to say. But I'm going to say something. I've known. Is this on? Yep. Okay, it's picking it up. I've known you since kind of beginning of my breast cancer journey, and given your name and sought you out, and you've been just a great inspiration and help and comfort to me through this journey. And it is a process. I think it's a spiritual process. In my own, I went alternative for a year, didn't go see an oncologist, and finally sought an alternative treatment in Reno, the Foresight Clinic, and he is an oncologist, but he's alternative. And then came back and they says, oh, well, you should go on this treatment. Since you have HER2, breast cancer, you should see an oncologist here and go on that. And I think we ended up having the same oncologist for a while. But one night, And that's a journey too. Working with the medical profession and oncologists and the whole thing. And yes, they can look at you and give you a deadline. And you don't have to accept that. I know one friend of mine that had breast cancer. She said, yeah, they gave her 2 years. And she looked at him and says, you know what? I don't know that date. You don't know that date. But I don't have to accept that 2 years. And as far as I know, she's still alive and well. But one night I couldn't sleep. It was about 3 o'clock. And so I got up finally, and I went to the Kindle and opened up a book that I had in there. And I think it's Mind Over Medicine. And I opened it to a page that said, have your cancer cells write you a letter. Why are they here? And so I did. I pulled out my journal, and I'm going, why are you here? And I just started writing. It was just almost like automatic. And they said to me that they weren't here to kill me. They were here to help me grow. And that I had asked for this. That I had wanted kind of the greatest spiritual growth in this lifetime, and they were there to give it to me. And they said, don't be afraid of me. And I'm going, yeah, right, you know. Right, yeah, you could kill me. And they said, we're not here to kill you. And it says, you know, you will be led to people and places and purposes that you would not have had if I wasn't here helping you on your journey. And so it really did give me a different perspective. And talking about the connectiveness, once you're on that journey in that particular area, you do get connected to a lot of people and places and things like that you wouldn't have just ignored. And so it to me it is. And I can see that spiritual journey in you. And thank you for keep offering that and not just totally disappearing. My love and thoughts have been with you this whole time. And so thank you so much for sharing your journey.
That's very nice. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know we don't have the Bodhi tree right now, but this was not my normal Dharma talk. If somebody's not been here, I normally do quite a different kind of Dharma talk, but I'm happy to do it because it allows me to explore, and it won't be about me. It'll be about whatever's coming up. If anybody would like to join me on this, I'm very willing to continue doing this because I think it's an opportunity for all of us, and so I'm happy to do it if people want to come on over, and we'll always serve treats. Jade.
I wasn't emotional a few moments ago. I think this is a particularly profound time for all of us, Pat. Because, for me personally, you have not only been a teacher of meditation for us, you're a practitioner, you're an academic, you're studied, but to me, the power of what you're doing today is that as a human being, you're one of us. And you're totally making yourself vulnerable to, I'm going to say, let us in on the inside. It's like the inside scoop here. We rarely get to be with someone who's experiencing this and have them articulate it, first of all, and do it with such awareness and clarity. That's, and I also work with a lot of end-of-life patients who are terminally ill, for those of you who may not know me. So, as a hospice chaplain. So, and everyone has a different way of relating to it. And the fact that you have it's that whole thing, you've leaned into it, you have welcomed it. I'm not saying you liked it, but it's just so profound that you have let us in on the journey with you this way. It's so intimate. So I just want to thank you for being so gracious and so courageous and letting us be a part of this with you. Yeah.
I had no idea what I was actually going to say today, and I kept thinking, I'll write it all down. I'll have it on my, the way I normally do. That Ray says, you don't need those notes. Well, maybe I did. but still, I had this real desire, and after Margie and I spent a lot of time talking about it, I really had a desire to share with people I love that, and we've had some of us have had a long relationship through the meditation, years. And so to change it up, I mean, it's not really changed up. It's just, this is just the topic for today. But being able to do it here and to offer it and to have you come, I feel honored and I feel lucky. I feel real lucky.
It's the highest form of community, I just want to say, because this is really how, this is what we have done in the past, but we have so become separated from the experience of sharing our living and our dying.
So true. So true. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. How was Japan, you guys? Oh, I'm sorry. Nikki, go ahead.
We briefly talked about it once, I think. But just that meditation on death is an important, powerful Buddhist teaching and practice. And I feel like I want to be doing more of it. And so, it's kind of like we're all living on the knife's edge, but it's just you're sort of contemplating it with more clarity maybe than we are, even though in fact, I pray everyone gets home safely, but we don't know what's going to happen or what's going to happen next to anybody or the whole island or whatever. So, so I think I would love to, have you help us explore that. And I think that was Dean out there, wasn't it?
Yeah, Dean and Janine both are engaged in that kind of practice. I do a POA. POA practice. I did it twice in India and once in Maui. And it's a very powerful practice because it's so practical in some ways. That the Tibetans particularly have identified. That the Tibetans have identified the processes that we seem to actually go through in the dying itself. What happens to the physical body. It's graphic. It's a beautiful practice actually, and the idea of once you see that that practical dissolution, it becomes not frightening at all. There's a lovely book by Jeffrey Hopkins, who's a very wonderful scholar. He used to be the translator for the Dalai Lama for some years. And he has sort of distilled the most important parts of the POA practice. It's PHOWA. And I have it here next on my bed. And it's a very well thought out way of presenting it. He's at Harvard or something. I don't know what he is. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And but he has taken what are the most important elements, I think, and has sort of shared those. And then beyond that, beyond just what's happening to the physical body, but what you can do to make the process, an enlightened one, if you will, and that to me is even more important than understanding just the dissolution that it's very powerful. Any other questions or thoughts or
You had mentioned Viktor Frankl
yeah.
and the importance of having a purpose and a meaning
Uh-huh.
to life.
Uh-huh.
From the sounds of it, I might guess that your purpose and meaning in what you're doing now is to help us, to shine a light for us, to help us as we go on our journey to what will, await all of us at some point in time. Is that true, or do you have some other reason for it? Wanting to live longer, or wanting to share?
That's a good question, Andy. But the truth is, I really did want to share it. I have two friends here from Australia. So Claire, who's sitting next to you, and Kristen, and they've come to help me for. Oh, and of course Nigel and his daughter Maggie. So and they've been here for a number of days. And I said to them, I said to Claire and to Kristen, I feel like, what did I say? I said I feel like I'm more alive because they're here. I feel like my whole being was affected by their presence, by their coming, and I think that's important. It's really important, that we have loving people around us and that we are loving back to those people. We don't give enough, credit to it. We don't pay enough attention to it, until it's like the guy's laying on the bed and you're like, I always loved you, but I never said it, but I do think it's, the more we can shine that light, the more we can just say it out, the better off we all are, Thank you for asking that. Yeah. Anybody? I'm so happy you came. This was a major experiment. That's what I was saying to Margie yesterday. It's a major experiment. You too, Harry. I'm glad to see you. I'm glad to see all of you. It's just so nice. So nice. Yeah.
So from your perspective, do you feel the experiment has been successful?
I
think we feel, I'm speaking for
absolutely. I mean, next time I'll do a formal Dharma talk with papers. But
no, Pat.
I'm an academic, I got to do it in that way. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had no idea what to expect. I had no idea of who was going to be here. I had no idea what I was going to say until this afternoon when I just jotted down some little notes. No idea. I just had this compulsion or something, this, the heart of the matter. What's going on here, and how can I convey that and share it? How can I, and to say thank you, which is another big one that we don't get to do very often, is to say thank you to the people who love us, So, yeah. Yeah, Ginny.
Death is such a teacher, and you're teaching us how to live.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'll tell you, my daughter's been absolutely incredible in this. When I took a nosedive, and I ended up in I don't know where I was, but I was looking for my mother, and I was in the fetal position, and I was just, she handled it like a champ. She just, she called the hospice people, she did the whole thing and just did it like a solid, amazing being. When the hospice people got here, they were quite amazed at, she opened up the morphine and not for me, but I did it. I mean, but it was really, I've never had an experience like that. And so it was my first opportunity to see what might be coming, and to have somebody around you who's just doing such a good job. I don't know where she went. She's hiding. Is she outside?
Oh, no, I wanted to.
Oh, sorry.
Can't keep that away from So, anyway, I agree. She was your rock. Yeah. And I was here, once a week, twice a week, last few months. Yeah. And sometimes talk story, eat lunch, or sometimes just look in the window and just pretty awesome, and it reminds me of that James Taylor song, "Shower the People You Love with Love." And watching you two guys, and you know, all the histories, up and downs and backs and forth, and the love is coming down. It was so great.
Thank you. Did you have an expectation when you came?
I did. I had an expectation. I wanted to dive in this pool of loving energy. Yeah, that was my expectation, and it's always present. You know, what is that biblical phrase? If two or more are gathered in my name, I feel it. It's here. And I think that's the healing energy. It's not about us individually, it's about us universally, the collective. And we are part of that universal pool of love and light. And it's felt.
You know, and I think that may be what the allopathic world is missing. Is that loving pool? They just can't. I mean, my poor oncologist was so overwhelmed with patients. I don't blame him. But that whole element of that loving pool is not. It's not really available, you know, in that process. So, yeah.
And then I think when we're conscious of that loving pool, we no longer feel alone or lonely or isolated. We're part of a much larger community, not just of man, but life. And that's very nurturing. I think that's where the soul gets nurtured. And that's why we come together as a community.
That's right.
You know, we don't know that. We chit-chat and do cocktail conversations, but maybe beneath that there's another reason why we come together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting. This coming Saturday, there's the Interfaith Alliance of Hawaii is having a big...
Sunday.
Oh, is it Sunday? Sorry, Sunday. Oh, I would have showed up Saturday. Oh, that would have been good. Okay, that would have been great. Okay, but anyway, and so somebody nominated me for something, Flame of Hope. And the thing that I wanted to talk about was that very thing. The idea in Buddhism of Sangha, of loving community, of having people around us who share in that journey, in their own way, but still that whole idea of community and how important it is and how it's become expanded and how we need to expand it even more, to include, way more than just our Buddhist group or our, practice group or whatever. And that's what I wanted to say in my thank you. Now you don't have to come.
The idea of Kalyana Mitra.
Yes, yeah, beautiful. There's a concept in Buddhism called Kalyana Mitra, which means my spiritual friend, and all of us hopefully have one, I think the extension of that too, the expansion of Kalyana Mitra, I have so many in this room, I'm just, and I think that is powerful. That's something, to learn from that tradition, is the idea of gathering, like-minded friends, Yeah.
So, for me, I just want to say, though, today was so much like living the Dharma. I just always used to hear that phrase. And now, though, today was like an experience of that, Pat. And that each of us, by being here, our presence created that. And then the other piece I really got that was like, because Thich Nhat Hanh too is someone I really love, and I think many of us have read his books. But his interdependence, this is also an example, the experience of a kind of intimacy through the loving kindness. And I think it's important to name that, I mean, I know some people here, I don't know many people here, but I feel it, it's palpable. So.
There's going to be a great gathering at the palace on Sunday for the 100th anniversary of the death of Queen Liliuokalani.
Honganji Temple did a fantastic 100th anniversary.
It was unbelievable. They had a woman from the Big Island who did a living history and portrayed Liliuokalani, and it was so beautifully done. It was just beautifully done, and the temple was packed beyond packed. And I think everyone who experienced it last week was moved by how powerful it was, and the bishop, who's just a wonderful, lovely, I mean, I love him. He's local, he's just beautiful. And he gave this really powerful talk, I thought, about, not just about Liliuokalani, but about the relationship and how Liliuokalani and Mary Foster actually created the space for the Japanese community to be accepted by the rest of the community in Honolulu, by having the Queen come to this Buddhist temple, a Japanese Buddhist temple, and it went around the world. It was telegraphed all around the world, and it made a difference for that entire community of people for the rest of their lives and beyond. So it was very, very powerful. So I hope if they're doing anything like that, if they're having people come on Saturday, you should definitely have a chance to go see it, because it was really tear-jerking. Well, I'd like to invite you to have some treats. Please don't go without having something, since we, between us, we all, brought these together and for your enjoyment. And I thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much.